VAT Certification Annex 30. Why VAT certification matters for IMEX companies? Many multinational companies operating in Mexico under the IMEX program rely on an important benefit that significantly improves cash flow and operational efficiency. This benefit is the VAT certification, which allows companies to apply a tax credit on the VAT generated by temporary imports. Without this certification, companies would be required to pay VAT at the time of importation and later request a refund from the tax authorities. As many companies know, refund processes can take time and may create pressure on working capital. The VAT certification allows companies to avoid this situation by applying a tax credit mechanism directly at the time of importation. However, maintaining this benefit requires strict compliance with several operational and regulatory obligations. One of the most important control mechanisms supporting the VAT certification is Annex 30, which is used to manage and monitor the VAT credit associated with temporary imports. When a company obtains the VAT certification, one of the first steps is to submit the initial inventory to Annex 30. This initial balance establishes the starting point for controlling the VAT credit associated with temporary imports. From that moment on, companies must regularly submit the corresponding discharge reports, typically on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, depending on the operational structure and reporting processes of the company. These reports allow the system to reflect how the VAT credit generated by temporary imports is being discharged as production and export activities take place. Because of this, it is essential to continuously monitor that Annex 30 is functioning properly and that the VAT credit is being applied and discharged correctly. Companies should periodically review the balances generated by the system to ensure that the credit reflects their operational reality. If errors or discrepancies appear, particularly those attributable to the authorities' systems or data processing, companies should approach the authorities to request clarification or assistance in resolving the issue. Another important point is to carefully monitor over-discharge situations, commonly referred to as sobredescargos. These situations occur when the system reflects a discharge of VAT credit that exceeds the amount originally generated by the import operation. If these discrepancies are not detected and addressed in time, they may create compliance risks during reviews by the tax authorities. From an accounting perspective, companies should also ensure that the VAT credit associated with temporary imports is properly monitored through memorandum accounts or cuentas de orden in order to maintain visibility and internal control over the credit balance. Within Annex 30, the VAT credit is generally reflected in two sections. The first corresponds to the revolving credit associated with raw materials and production inputs, which is continuously generated and discharged as materials are imported, consumed in production, and the finished goods are exported. The second corresponds to the credit associated with fixed assets, such as machinery and equipment temporarily imported under the IMEX program. Unlike the revolving credit for inputs, the VAT credit related to fixed assets generally remains associated with the asset, while it stays under the temporary import regime and is not discharged through the production cycle. This credit typically remains in place for as long as the asset continues operating under the program, unless its status changes. For example, the credit may be affected if the asset is returned abroad, if its customs regime changes, if it is transferred, or if the equipment is disposed of through processes such as scrap due to age or obsolescence. Maintaining visibility over these balances is essential for ensuring that the VAT credit is properly managed and reflected in the system. For companies operating under the IMEX program, preserving the VAT certification requires continuous monitoring of Annex 30 records, accurate operational data, and strong coordination between trade compliance, tax, finance, and operational teams. When these controls are properly implemented, companies can maintain confidence that their VAT credit is being managed correctly and continue benefiting from one of the most important advantages of operating under the IMEX program in Mexico. Learn more about trade compliance in Prodensa Academy. Built for strategic execution.